My name is Paul Leon. If this is your first time joining us, this is a podcast dedicated to helping people managers power up their people management skills. I've trained over 500 companies, helped over 1,000 people level up, and currently I am wrapping up an MBA program, which is actually going to be the subject of what we're going to talk about for this episode. So one of the things I've been getting a lot from people I've been training and working around in the years is, should I go back to school? Should I pursue a master's in business administration like yourself? And I think that's a personal choice that's really hard to answer. So my goal for this video is to give you my journey, because I'm going to be coming up on next year, wrapping up and graduating with my master's in business administration. This is going to be a heart from the heart episode. I have no notes. There's no teleprompter. This is whatever comes from my heart. There'll be some editing, but I just want to speak candidly with you. If you're going to pursue a master's in business administration, my recommendation is define what the goal is you want for that. For me, I was a college dropout, and many years ago when I first went to college, I made the mistake of listening to an English teacher who said, "You're too stupid for college." Those were her exact words. To her credit, I wasn't really giving it my all. I was 18. I was very dumb. I didn't really value college that much. It wasn't until much later in life where I made the difficult decision at around 27, 28 years old to go back to college, because I just had that itch to do that. And I knew it would open more opportunities. I think one of the things I would encourage a lot of people to do is just look up, is having a college degree good for the economy? You'd be surprised at how much data out there that shows that it helps reduce unemployment rates, etc. So when I went back to college at 28, it was very, very hard. I had to relearn math. I was actually in the math lab every night after work. And I remember there would be times where I would be sitting in front of the computer, and there was these little flags at the community college I went when I was getting my AA, because I hadn't even had that when I went back. And I would put the flag up for the math problem, because that was my biggest struggle. English and stuff I could easily learn. That's a lot of just repetition, but math was really hard for me. But the thing I learned about learning math was the only way you get good at math is you problem your way through it. And what I mean by that is there's a ton of research that the amount of problems you do will determine your level of competency with math. So knowing that, I would do about 80 to 100 problems a night in the math lab. In fact, there was even a time where a tutor was like, "My shift's about to end. You may want to get the other person." She's like, "I've given you my all." Now, I'm very thankful for that community college that they had that resource, and I was able to take advantage of that, because all it was just me with a small whiteboard, me in front of a computer, and just problem after problem after problem after problem. And I got in that class a passing grade, thankfully. It was a C, wasn't anything to write home about. And that allowed me to take other classes. And then it was the same rinse and repeat method. I tell you that story not to make you feel sorry for me, but to give you some perspective of somebody who's been through that journey, to know what you're in for. And the question you have to ask yourself is my current time commitment there? And am I able to give more time to it? Luckily, I was in a situation where I could, but if I'm being real with you, I had more pain driving me to drive my purpose than I did anything else. See, when I was number one in sales and crushing it for this company, I was in a situation where I was told, for you to be a sales trainer, you would have to be the number one salesperson. And then I did that for 4 years in a row. And I would keep going back to my manager. And it wasn't until the 3rd year of doing this where he said, "Can I be real? You just don't have a degree." And then he shrugged. And the mistake I made was giving approval to strangers or people that really don't matter. If you want this degree or you want this that bad, it has to be for you, nobody else. You have to be selfish, and you're going to have to be willing to say goodbye to some people in the process. This is going to sound really hard. It's going to sound like I don't care about people, and that's not what I'm trying to say here. But most people are not going to care as much about your success as you are. And that's really tough to hear. And I'm going to give you another example. So I did comedy in Orlando for years. There was nights I would go out to open micing all the time. And I remember in the pandemic, I had a going away party because we were leaving for an opportunity for my wife. I always believe happy wife, happy life, and you should always support your partner. And that's a decision that has always rewarded me, even if it's hard for you and you're thinking of being selfish. And maybe I'm talking to just the men here, but if in this, I think this is applies to both genders or whatever gender you identify with. You should always back your partner if you can. If you love this person, and one of the best things I ever heard was that if you have to weigh your options, you have to evaluate where you are in your relationship. And luckily, with my wife, I've never had to weigh my options. And I will be very candid with you. I'm blessed in that regard. So I remember I had this party, and I probably invited about a little over 50 people I knew. And these were people I would be in the car with, like people who, I remember one friend had cancer. We raised money, did everything we could, did shows. And I remember I invited over 50 people. These are people I was in the car with who went through breakups, people who I had to help sometimes move out of their house. It was that type of like cohort. And I had this party, it's going away, and I thought some people would show up, or some people would text me or message me, like, hey, sorry I couldn't come through. I know you're leaving. You know how many people messaged me? One. You know how many people showed up to the party? One. There was only one. And it was actually somebody that I'd only hung out with a couple times, and he just wanted the free food. And I think about that experience, it did hurt my feelings. I don't understand. These are people I felt we were like brothers or sisters. There was so much more. But I'm going to tell you why that experience was so powerful and how this connects to college now. The longer you do things for other people, the less empowerment you have for yourself. That's hard. So if you're going to go back to college, you have to say, this is for me and this is for the goal I want. So I went through college. I ended up going through that Journey Associates, and I ended up going to finishing up my bachelor's in Winter Park, Florida. And I did my bachelor's in organizational behavior, communication practices, and principles. And I would do a lot of odd jobs, move furniture, comedy. And then I did what it took. And that allowed me to launch that in the pandemic. I was going to make the decision to do my MBA. When the pandemic hit, unfortunately, a lot of credits and certain scholarships I attained were taken away. So the MBA got put on hold, and we got another opportunity to back my partner, and I did that. I did it for her. We moved. Again, I've never regretted that. Love it. I ended up getting an opportunity to be a sales trainer for an amazing company. I have no disrespect for this company. In fact, at the time, I was actually negotiating with a couple different companies. And I remember should I pick this one? And I'm a spiritual person. I practice a certain belief system that works for me. I remember that I was going through different interviews, and they had said, hey, do you have any competing offers in one interview? And I said, I have this company. And the recruiter probably should have not done this, but said, you should pick that company. But your offer seems like it's better on money. Honestly, that's a better choice. And I made that decision in that regard. That to me was the calling from above. So I did that. And in that time, I've never regretted it. I've hustled. I got the opportunity to train over thousands of people, work with over 500 companies, see different perspectives. And I'll never forget when I had written this plan, it was 6-8 months in, the manager had called me and said, you're not going to believe this. The closing rates are through the roof, and your training is the catalyst. And I said, super cool. And I didn't say anything in that moment. I actually hung up the phone, and all of a sudden, of just 8 months of hard work, I just started crying like a baby by myself in my house. Nobody knows this story. I've never actually told this story except for the first time in this episode. And I couldn't figure out why. In fact, what was really weird about this moment too, have you ever seen the Disney movie Hercules? There's this song, I can go the distance. That was playing in the background on the TV. And I just remember was crying to Hercules and that song. And I couldn't really figure out why I was crying. I'm on the real with you. The only assumption I have for myself is that I had so much pain driving me that when it finally worked after over 4 years, it felt like such a relief to win. I want to say that again because I think it's really important that this resonates. After 4 years of grit, when I finally had a win, there was this relief and this dopamine overdose that just really resonated with me. And I am flexing slightly, and I'm trying to be humble at the same time in this story with you, because what I want you to realize is if you have a jumpstart reason or a pain-driven reason to go to college, that's going to be the spark. I think that's great. But to keep that flame alive, you have to be realistic with the fact that this is a 4 to 5 year goal. And that's even for your bachelor's. Now we're going to transition more into the master's in business administration. So in my MBA, my master's administration, I'm going to share a screenshot here at this point in the video or to apply for the graduation link. I started this master's in business administration, fortunately, because I had a professional who had said, "You're too stupid to do a master's in business administration." The only reason this podcast grows is because of you. When you hit that follow button or you leave us a review, it means the world to me. I did a cost analysis. Each episode, in terms of resources, costs somewhere around $2,500 and upward. We give a lot of this professional development away for free, but what makes the world to me is when you leave a review or you give us 5 stars or just give us feedback so we know how to grow. And I will do everything in my power to make sure that the Manager's Mind podcast is exceptional and serves your professional development. Tough thing to hear again. Here's the thing though. I have been in this situation before. I had been in a situation where I had listened to an English teacher who said I was too stupid, and I let her opinion for 10 years dictate my belief system. And luckily that happened to me. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I was faced with that challenge again. And here's the good news. I knew not to listen to the naysayers. Let me say that again. You have to not listen to the naysayers when it comes to going to pursuing your master's or business administration. Because if you do, the naysayers are going to win. And more importantly, they want to bring you down, because psychologically damaged people want to psychologically damage others to justify their own losses in life. Hurt people hurt people. That's simple. And I decided to go back to a master's in business administration. And if I'm being even more real, because of the intensity of a certain situation, I was going through 40 therapy appointments. And it wasn't until I decided to pull that lever and go through that pain again of doing a master's in business administration. At this point in the story, where what to expect when you first start a master's in business administration, how it's going to change your life. So I'm a father. I am a married man. I have 2 beautiful children that I absolutely adore. Doing podcasting and content marketing is very low on my list of priorities. I like to win with my family, win with my company, and win with my team members. That's pretty much how I live my life. And I'm not a multimillionaire. I still drive a Subaru Forester where the window doesn't come down, which makes me look like a psycho when I go through the drive-through. People think I'm going to assault them. I'm like, no, I'm not mad at McDonald's. I just don't want to pay to have the driver's side window come down. And I don't know why I tell you that story. I'm just trying to be real with you. And I remember that when I was going through this master's in business administration, the thing that I had to shift, and you'll have to shift, is your schedule. I wake up Monday through Friday at 4:30 a.m. So I can get to the gym from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. So my wife can typically go between 6 to 7 a.m. And then we get the kids ready, get them on the school system. And then I'm at work. I am checking emails, calling, catching up on projects. And that's pretty much my life in a nutshell. I am on it back to front. And there are some nights where I will go work all the way till 5. I won't eat lunch, which is probably, maybe I'll have like a 15-minute snack. I'm not like big on taking an hour lunch unless I'm like super exhausted. And then sometimes I will work after 5, and then I get the kids down around, probably if I'm lucky, 9. And then I'll hang out with my wife. And then sometimes it's literally from 10 to 1 in the morning, just doing a lot of homework. And the reason that works for me is because what they say in the school system is that for every hour of schoolwork, you need 2 hours of work time. I have to double that. And that's how I leverage my calendar system and audit. That might seem intense to some, but let me be real with you. There's 168 hours in a week. I would recommend you look up the Arnold Schwarzenegger speech. It's one of my favorites. If ever I'm down, I'll listen to that while I'm working on an administrative task. And there's 168 hours in a week. So you sleep for X, and I'm not going to destroy the speech, but when you really do the math and you look at your time, and I promise you, if you do this, the only thing you're going to gain is just more awareness. Please do this before you decide if you can balance doing a master's in business administration. I looked at my time at the time when I was first deciding, do I want to do this? And I had someone say, you're too stupid to do it again. And I was doing open micing again. I had went through another situation where I was psychologically damaged. It was really tough. And I had started to go back into comedy and do all that stuff. And it's really hard, though, after the pandemic to try to restart where I currently live in the Ohio area. And it was going well, but I knew the pain it takes to even get a little bit good at comedy. And I don't think I'm a master comedian, but I think I can hold my own against most. And when I looked at the time it took to drive to an open mic, prepare for your jokes, write your jokes, do everything, which I'm going to be real with you. I love making people laugh. If anything I share makes you chuckle a little, I've done something good for someone. I always think about just one person I want to help. But when I did this time audit of going to comedy and how much time it took, it was 4 to 6 hours with writing jokes, traveling, waiting to go up, which is, if you ever waited, sometimes you go to some rooms that are super hot. And when you're a stranger, let's say you even get early. That happened to me many times at comedy. I would go be like third on the list, and then I was 30th for whatever reason, because the host just bumps you. And they're not jerks or good or bad, but there's no human resources department in this world. And when I did it the first time, my bachelor's, I would even do homework in between sets, but doing a bachelor's amount of work and versus a master's is a totally different time commitment. You're writing in third party. You should never write in first person. You got to get your data tight. You got to learn these certain frameworks and be tight and be on it with your professors. Because when you do a master's in business administration and you're a family, and you have a professor, essentially what you have are 3 bosses. And if you're spiritual like me, you technically have the biggest boss upstairs as well. Now, again, there's a little bit of humor and there's a lot of truth in what I just said. You have to ask yourself, what can I free up in my time? And am I willing to take on more stakeholders that they will not pay you? Now, that's a lot of pain part with some humanity in this story. I'm going to talk to you about the pleasure side now, if that's fair. What you will gain, what you're going to gain is more. Number one is you're going to gain more confidence in who you are. You've proven to yourself that you can do the work and you can rise above it. That's what you'll gain, number one. Number two, you'll be able to craft more elegantly, write more elegantly. And I know we're in the time of ChatGPT and AI. What I would encourage you to do is to use it to check your work. Maybe with like Microsoft Copilot, I think is a good program. There's no leakage and it doesn't take a ton of paper. Does this sentence structure make sense? I think it's fine in terms of stuff like that. But as much as you can, I would encourage you, like I did, use it to cross-check your work. It's your own private tutor. In fact, sometimes what a lot of people have done is they'll prompt it to say, I need you to be my tutor in here. I don't want you to give me the answers. I need you to help me get there. Just like when I was in that math lab the first time and I had to take a human, you can actually set it up that way and cross-check your work. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. My opinion around AI, I think sometimes if you really challenge it and read your work out loud, it makes no sense. It gets really wordy. And in the business world, especially with me, with VPs and directors and people I got to make happy, they don't like a lot of work. They want your data tight first. And if you can work on concision and just giving them what they need, bottom line, so they can make easier turnkey decisions, they actually love that a lot more. And that's something I've learned. And that's what a master's in business administration will help you reframe even further. And if I'm being on the real, I already knew that, but this will just reinforce that skill and scratch that itch and get those bigger muscles around what you need to get better in the workplace. I'm going to talk to you, the decision maker who's saying, do I pull the lever and going back to college? Do I take that risk? What happens if I fail? I'm afraid of falling, fear, false evidence appearing real. It's normal. Let me explain. It's normal The fear you have, that's part of the process of getting an MBA. The lack of not knowing is part of an MBA. The lack of thinking, if you've ever felt I'm doing this and now my family suffers as a result, that feeling is part of getting an MBA, and it's false. And let me explain why. I think this story is probably the best way I can get you a little closer to deciding if you're ready or not for an MBA. I was putting my boy down, my son, and I love both my kids. They're so smart. They're going to be so much better than me, and I'm so excited for them to be winners, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to bleed for these kids. I think any parent would do that. I remember I don't know why I said this to my son. I said, I don't even want to do this MBA. And remember, I'm an adult talking to someone under 10 years old. I was like, I don't even want to do this MBA. I want to just give you my all. I think I'm going to quit. And we were sitting there talking, and he goes, well, Dad, school's hard for me too. Should I quit? You smarty pants. There's a reason you're on the principal's honor roll. And I never was growing up. And that was a moment where it challenged me, and it told me there's only one approval you need, and it's your family. That's the approval you need. If you can anchor that approval for what really matters, for me, it's my faith, my maker, and my family. As cliche, as nuanced as that sounds, that pain of that moment of my son saying, should I quit because you're going to quit, was so hard for me to hear. It hurt in a good way, just like working out, just like getting to get bigger muscles, that I was like, okay, I get this. He needs an example. And I'm not being that example. So my hope for you in this update of where I'm at with my MBA, because I'm 75% done, and I am finishing this. I am completing this degree in April. It's happening. And you have to have that level of tenacity. You have to have that level of commitment where it's just, you're done with decision making. It's time. You're going to give up things you like. You're going to give up people who are going to challenge you. And there's going to be people who pull you in different directions away from your ultimate goal. I promise you this, they do not matter. The only people that matter, at least from my perspective, is my maker above. And if that's not for you, I don't believe in that stuff, then it's got to be who around you is family that you're doing it for, that you want to win for them. If you have that drive, and that's here. There's no book, there's no MBA, there's nothing that can teach you that. I am extremely confident you are ready to get this degree. You are ready to go on this 2 to 4 year journey of growth. Do it for that reason, because you're going to grow from it. You're going to be so much better. You're going to be so much more confident. And here's the thing, nobody can take that from you. No people manager who's putting you on a PIP, who's calling you stupid. No English teacher who says you're dumb. No 50, 70, 100 people who say you're their friends. But then when you start to go somewhere in life, they start to say, oh, come on, you work too hard, man. What's the deal? They don't get it. You may be on an island, but you have a ton of fruit and riches on this island. You just have to pick up the pieces, do the work, and thrive.